Before the revolution became muskets and declarations, it was bread and cloth. It was mothers at the hearth, daughters at the loom, wives keeping homes alive while the world outside unraveled. Every spoonful of tea, every choice of fabric, every whispered word in kitchens carried danger. Because in colonial America, defiance began not in halls of power, but around the family table. And as British soldiers marched just beyond the door, women became the quiet architects of rebellion. And I promise you, this part of the revolution is almost never told the way you're about to hear it now. The British Crown believed it could tighten control through taxes, the Stamp Act, the Townshend duties, the Tea Act. But for women, these weren't lines in a law book. These were daily struggles. Sugar for a child's porridge, fabric for a daughter's wedding dress, tea for guests. Every necessity carried a tax, and every tax carried humiliation. But women refused to bend. In parlors across Boston, Philadelphia, Charleston, they gathered for what they called spinning bees. Groups of women spinning yarn and weaving cloth. What looked like domestic chores were acts of war. Each homespun garment became a statement. We do not need Britain. Until the centerpiece of colonial hospitality was turned into a symbol of betrayal. Women stopped serving it, even at weddings or funerals. Imagine the quiet courage it took to refuse guests the drink that defined social life, because to pour tea was to pour loyalty to Britain. And so the revolution wasn't just written in pamphlets, it was stitched, woven and boiled in kitchens run by women. But rebellion was never safe. British redcoats filled colonial towns, an occupying army among families. Mothers taught children to keep their voices low. Wives worried each time their husbands left for the tavern, unsure if words spoken in anger might invite soldiers to their door. In Boston, women shopped under the watchful gaze of armed patrols. Imagine carrying bread home while boots followed you down narrow streets. A knock at the door could mean a soldier demanding lodging, food, or worse. And in hushed conversations at night, wives asked the question no man could answer without guilt. If war comes, will you fight? And if you fight, who will protect us? These weren't just political debates. They were choices of survival. And in those quiet moments, the real battle wasn't muskets versus muskets. It was fear versus courage, carried most heavily by women. Then came March 5th, 1770, Boston, the night when fear spilled into the streets. Colonists clashed with British soldiers outside the customs house. Snowballs and insults turned to musket fire. Within minutes, 5 men lay dead, the first blood of a revolution. But what history books often forget is what happened inside the homes that night. Wives rushed into the streets to drag their children away from the chaos. Mothers pressed cloth to wounds. Families wept as bodies were carried past their doors. The Boston Massacre wasn't just politics. For women, it was a living nightmare, a sign that war had already entered their homes. And every wife, every mother watching from her window realized safety was gone, the fight was no longer far away. It was at the doorstep. From that night on, rebellion wasn't a question of if. For families, it became a question of how long they could survive it. Yet through it all, women carried the revolution in silence. While men argued in taverns, women kept homes supplied without British imports. While men wrote pamphlets, women shaped the culture of defiance with their choices. They weren't in parliament, they didn't sign declarations, but they refused to surrender their dignity or their families. And in doing so, women became the hidden leaders of America's first rebellion. Their courage was not shouted in speeches, but lived in every thread, every recipe, every refusal. The revolution didn't begin with a cannon. It began in the home. It began in the choices of women who looked at their children and decided, we will not live as subjects. We will raise our families as free people. And long before the Declaration of Independence was ever signed, freedom was already being written. day by day by women whose names history too often forgets.